This is The Real Shift with Templeton Walker
and Kristen Cantrell,
where we break down all things Real Broker, why we both decided to move our businesses to Real Brokerage. We interview top agents from across the nation, like you're going to hear today.
Welcome back to the Real Shift podcast. I'm Kristen.
I'm Templeton.
And we have an awesome guest here today, Rebecca Green out of Portland. Hello.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am really excited to have you here because I've gotten the pleasure of getting to know you over the last 6 months. And although we met when we're both at Real, I just feel like you've had such an awesome business and it's been really cool to hear how you came to Real. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background before you decided to move?
Yes. So I've been in the business for 33 years. I have run the marketing and business. I ran the marketing and business development for a large brand for a lot of years, hired 250 agents, have built teams pretty much since I started selling real estate. I built my first team 6 months after I started. I've worked for traditional brands up until my move from Real. And I've, typically loved my business, loved the industry, loved, I've seen a lot of changes. Back when I started selling, there was no technology. We relied on the Saturday newspaper for advertising, marketing, and also as our quasi MLS because, believe it or not, we were in books at that time for listing properties. So I've seen a lot of things happen and I've seen a lot of things shift over the years.
Oh.
No, you go.
I didn't want to interrupt. Okay, so you've had a lot of experience and then you decided about a year ago. What brought you even to the decision of looking at Real?
Yeah, I had left one brand, moved to another brand. And if I'm being honest, it was the first time in my business where I really felt a stagnation. And I'm definitely not one to blame the market, my environment, the things around me, right? I take ownership of my own business. I take ownership of the things I want to create in my own business. But I was feeling so unsettled. I was feeling just not in alignment, I think is a great word, not in alignment with a lot going on around me. And I couldn't really pinpoint exactly what it was, but I started to recognize that the old brokerage model, I had just moved from one to the next, and it was almost like it was exactly that you peel the curtain back, it was almost like it was exactly the same thing, just a different logo. Mm-hmm. And I found myself just really stuck in what next. I had agents asking me all the time, why don't you open your own brokerage? That was never on my bingo card. There's a whole slew of liability that goes with that. It's never something that interested me. But yeah, I was feeling super stagnant I wasn't feeling motivated, and that's not a typical, you and I have gotten to know each other. That is not a typical mindset for me at all. And so that was what really led me to starting to think that maybe the old brokerage model was broken and maybe there was something more out there. I'll also share that, I'm going to be 54 this year, so I had crossed that 50-mile marker, and I just didn't want to be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I felt like a lot of things going on around me were a little bit archaic, and that was really a struggle for me.
Yeah, I feel like I've always been shocked, when you look around our industry at how many things feel archaic. And you're like, you're still doing that? It's wild.
But for a lot of people, I think what you don't know, you don't know. So I commend you for being open to receiving, change is inevitable, right? And growth is inevitable. I've found, Rebecca, I'm curious, I found two main reasons that most people have come over, at least for me, is if you're a high producing realtor, the math is just better. If you, I think it's the greatest wealth accelerator a high producing realtor has. Once you couple in the stock awards with the stock purchase plan, with the revenue share, with the low splits, once you do the math, you kind of can't unsee it. So for you, was it the math or was it the culture? Or it could be a blend of both, but I know also the culture of collaboration and community and the leadership through the executive team, all for me really mattered. Was there one of those that jumped out first, and could you speak to either of those?
Yeah, so Sharon actually spoke to me first. I was watching a video and he was talking to a group of real agents, and somebody in the group said, Sharon, you're running this company and you're doing all of these things. I can't believe you're sitting here with us. Why are you doing this? And he laughed and he said, well, that's a silly question. I'm doing this because I work for you. And I was like, wait, what did he just say? I like hit rewind. And I was like, wait, that was kind of the light bulb. Like we as top producers and, you know, we've been pouring, I know I poured into brokerages financially, you know, I poured in with my time, I poured in building their brand in a way, because as you're producing for somebody else's brand, you're really building equity in their business, not your own in a lot of ways. Although you're gaining the client exposure and you're increasing your GCI and all of those things, you're still building equity in somebody else's company. And so hearing Sharon say that was my first light bulb. And then I literally turned to my husband and I said, I'm going to move my license to Real. And he said, oh, should we talk about this? And I said, no, I don't think so. And he said, well, when are you doing that? And I said, next week. And he was like, okay, didn't you just move? And I'm like, yeah, we can talk about that later. Like it was that instant for me that it was almost like an unlock. Like I needed to be jarred out of the kind of funk that I was in. And that was the first thing that did it. So I didn't know anything about the financials. I didn't know about the financials until I actually made the decision, because I've always spoken to being not a fee-driven agent, but being a value-driven agent.
Yeah.
Right? And recruiting to my team, I've said the same thing. Let's not focus on the fees, focus on the value. But what I recognized was the fees were high and the value was low. And so when I decided to move to Real, it was really because of the innovation that I heard and the culture that I heard from Sharon in this one short video clip, right? Crazy when I tell people that story, they're like, you blew up your whole business and did that because of one video clip? I'm like, yep, that's what I did. And so then I found out about the financials and I was like, wait. And also now I've got this culture and innovation. And the financials, you're right, you can't unsee it. What I was able to pour back into my team based on the financials was amazing.
So we had a conversation yesterday and you brought up such a good point. I've been saying this for years. It's like your old company would be like, hey, Rebecca, we've got this new agent and can you train and mentor them? Which is great, right? You're like, oh my gosh, they're doing me a favor because this is helping me grow my team. However, like, why don't you continue that conversation for everybody about what that actually looks like?
Yeah, and that's part of the building equity in somebody else's business.
Yeah.
You know, I did look at it for all these years like, wow, this is really great. My brokerage really respects the business that I'm building. They're giving agents to me. They're connecting me with agents that want to grow as well. And so I'm training them and I'm pouring so much into them, time, money, you know, to help them learn the business, which is something I've always loved doing. So I don't hate that I did that, right? Like totally. I still feel great about that. But the reality was, there comes a point in most team structures where an agent goes out on their own, right? They want to build their own, they want to build their own business. And I always looked at it like, you know, I've always mentored agents as well. And a lot of agents come to me and they're like, I'm so frustrated. So-and-so's been on my team for 3 years and now they're leaving. And I'm like, well, that's just the way it works. That's how it works, right? So what I recognized was, wait a second, and I didn't realize this until I came to Real, I'm putting all of this time and energy into these brokers, and now they're going off on their own inside of the brokerage, right, where the brokerage might have connected me with them, but inside of the brokerage, I've just trained that agent for that brokerage, and the brokerage is then going to continue profiting from that agent, and there is no return. And I'm not a selfish person, I'm not a greedy person, but we are business people. The business model in that is so wrong. Actually, I'm going to go as far to say it's broken, but it's also wrong. Coming into the Real structure, I was like, wait, I can change my fee structure to maybe keep agents in that team space longer, right? And also, if they're not on the team, I can still help them, right? And if they move off the team, they're still inside of Real, we're still benefiting from the time that we've poured into training them. Yeah. And that was also a huge light bulb for me.
For me, Rebecca, I've always felt like I've ran a big real estate team twice, and I'm a terrible team leader, by the way. But I've always been able to attract, right? And I've done that. Right. And one of the things that always just, you even said it, it's broken, was a real estate team does two things. It kind of rewards mediocrity, which I don't love, because if you're not great, you're going to leave. And if you get too great, you leave. And I'm sure in your 30 plus years, you've had rock stars come through your system that you poured into, you loved on, you cultivated. What I love about Real is now that day can really be a graduation day where you give them a hug, you give them a playbook and say, hey, all right, let's go grow. Let me help you go grow the biggest thing possible. There's actually a place that they can elevate to where in the past you said, you're like, it's the way it is. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. And it's just such a beautiful
And
thing.
it's a breakup.
Yeah, and it's
It's a
people end up
breakup.
not liking each
It is
other
a
and
breakup.
It is.
Even if you are still, like, I have great relationships with a lot of agents that were on my team in the past, right? It's still a breakup, right? And so when you are now truly in direct competition with somebody also, like, you can only pour so much into them. I'm always happy to answer the call. Hey, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm always happy to answer the questions. But the reality is you only have so much time in the course of the day, right? I just had an agent on my team that came to me and said, hey, I really want to build my own brand now. And to your point, I was like, that's great. This is just a different kind of collaboration. This is just a different kind of partnership. And let's go. Like, I was so pumped for her. Like, how can I help? Right. And that feels awesome. And I think that's something people might not realize as being one of the biggest benefits when you are a team lead inside of the Real platform.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I know one other thing that you mentioned is just the innovation and even aligning your brand with Real has been really great for you. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned I've been around a few blocks and been doing this for a really long time. I've never experienced the level of collaboration and innovation like I've experienced in the just over a year that I've been here. So I joined Real, I went to Rise shortly, a few months later. And I've worn a lot of hats. I've done a lot of cool things. I've been around, I've hit some accolades and some mile markers, all of the things, right? All of the things that are super irrelevant in so many ways, but I've done them. I got to Rise and I was like, oh, it's been a long time since I felt like a wallflower. I was just sitting there almost like shrinking. And I remember coming back to the room and I called my husband and I was kind of giving him the rundown. And I was like, oh, it's been a long time since I felt like such a small fish in a really big sea. And he was like, how's that make you feel? And I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
Talk
it's
about
such a
not
good
being a
point.
dinosaur.
Mhm.
Like, talk about not being, I mean, so many people, the level of the brain trust, the level of business that people are operating and the level of talent inside of Real, that part has been mind blowing to me, right? I cannot believe, and it goes to the collaboration too. I've never faced a closed door, no matter who in the system I've reached out or in the company that I've reached out to say, hey, I have a question about this. I hear you're the person doing this, or I've been watching you. And, it's always been met with, how can I help?
every time.
Every
I've
time.
had the same experience.
Yeah, so have I.
So the innovation, the culture, the whole thing, the innovation, the culture, and again, you have to own your own business. You have to be responsible for your own mindset, all of those things. But talk about getting me out of that funk in a hot second.
I love it.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
so true.
been awesome.
It's so true.
Super invigorating.
Well, and so we're just going to piggyback on the ending that story. So I love the fact that you talk about going to Rise and feeling like you're
Oh,
a smaller fish for once in a bigger pond. Because I had that experience. I remember when I first started, I was rookie of the year and top producer at this small brokerage. I was selling like $7 or $8 million my first year. And then I went to this event and I found out people were selling that every month at the time. And I was like, what?
yeah.
I was like, wait. And so just the collaboration's been incredible. And I love the fact that the three of us and across the 29,000 agents and growing, we're all connected, right? It really is one Real, one network. And for you to take time and be here with us today really means a lot. So I just want to personally say thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that people listening are definitely going to want to connect with you on Instagram. So why don't you tell them how to do that?
Yes. Also, thank you for having me. I could talk about the benefit and the value of Real all day long. It's a super easy conversation to have. It's something I'm still super excited about. So I appreciate the time here as well. You can find me at RebeccaGreen.co on Instagram or online.
All right, and last thing, if you had to describe Real in one word, what would it be?
Oh, that one's tough. There's so many. Innovative.
Good.
That's great.
I like it. All right,
Rebecca, thank
Rebecca,
you.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Have a good
Appreciate
one.
you.